Hello, this is reporter Julie Spencer, and I'd like to welcome you to Newsline, Iowa City. Please join me today as we take a trip to downtown Iowa City and talk with several business owners about Iowa's new gun law that will allow people to carry weapons openly into business establishments. With the new open carry law here in Iowa that recently passed, how do you feel about allowing guns inside of the business here?
Personally, I feel very, very uncomfortable if someone comes in wearing or carrying a gun. I will be very, very apprehensive, and I'm certainly sure that my customers will be a little bit uneasy unless they're very pro-gun, but just the average person doesn't expect to see someone carrying a gun when they come into a place to do some business. And especially a business like this where we are a little more vulnerable than, say, a paint store or a hardware store.
And so do you folks think that you will be posting a sign saying no weapons allowed?
I guess I'm going to wait and see what the Attorney General rules on this. There seems to be a lot of controversy right now whether a store can legally put up a sign that says no weapons allowed in the store. If it is ruled that way, I'm sure that we will probably pursue it. I understand some of the banks have already started doing it, and I guess if there is a ruling that way, that I would certainly feel more comfortable having a sign on the door.
How do you feel about the new open carry law, which would allow people to carry guns openly into businesses?
It's an interesting law because it was actually enacted, I think, a year ago, and it's only gone into enforcement, I guess, within the last month. And it must have happened very quietly because I was unaware of it, and I haven't met anybody who was aware of it. And my first response was, whose idea was this, and who thought this was a good idea? My whole take on it is that you know, we were established in 1854, and I'm sure everybody carried in 1854 and probably could have easily carried openly as well as concealed weapons. My big concern is that the presence of guns anywhere always introduces a higher presence of trouble as a result of guns. And I know that if somebody came in my store openly carrying a gun, and if I were a customer in my own store, I would leave. That would scare me. When it comes to the power of guns and rifles, I'm intimidated, and I'll leave because I don't want to be in a situation where it becomes possible that accidentally something had happened to me. As a store owner, many jewelry store owners own guns, and they have more than one in their store. They have them placed at a number of different points, and there are cases both for and against that in the industry. I mean, sometimes the guns have saved lives and helped people, and in other cases, the second an owner pulls a gun, in an armed robbery situation in particular, then it becomes violent and bloody and fatal sometimes. So I think that the combination of guns and temper, guns and fear is not healthy. In terms of businesses being able to opt to exempt themselves, that there are exemptions in the law, and I understand it's institutions like banks and federal institutions, state government institutions, libraries, places like that, and it seems very interesting to me that they would exempt those places and not everybody. I mean, I don't understand why the government is saying it's okay for people to carry guns into everywhere else except for these places, and that they've deemed that there's an even greater need for these places. I'm not stupid enough to think that people haven't been carrying guns in my store into my store for years, and I just haven't known about it. I've never been aware of a gun. What can I do if somebody walks in my store with an open weapon? I can't, and I have a sign on the door that says they can't. The only recourse I have about that person is to call the police and have them arrested for trespassing. You know, they have a right to carry that gun, and who am I to deny them that right? So I won't put the sign on my door. I don't really want to have guns in the store, but if I don't know about them, nothing changes. If they're visible, we put them in a private area and talk with them there, is our solution to it. I don't have a fear that this is going to turn into anything. All the mail that I've gotten from gun owners say that they always try to conceal their weapon. They understand that it's a threatening situation to have an exposed gun. And most people would rather not reveal that they're carrying a gun. So, I mean, that seems safe to me.
Mark, how do you feel about the new open carry law, which would allow people to carry guns openly into businesses?
Well, I think actually seeing it in the open would be intimidating to me. So I don't like the idea. Not that I like it any better if it's a concealed weapon, but if I don't know it exists, then I don't know to be afraid or intimidated. So, you know, from the safety standpoint of my staff and the people inside my environment, my clients, I don't like the idea of being able to carry a gun in the open. And it seems a little counterintuitive to even ask the question. I know it's an important question. I know it's one of our constitutional rights to bear arms. But I also think when you're talking about large audiences or large groups of people, potential for something, not necessarily the person who is carrying the gun to do something wrong or to get in trouble with the gun, but somebody else that might be violent, or somebody else that might be drunk, or somebody else that might interact with the gun holder or the gun owner and take the gun and use it, you know, for purposes that it wasn't intended. And so those things scare me, is the unpredictability of what happens if a person or people are carrying guns in the open, and you know, somebody who's much stronger than me or much bigger than me, and I'm carrying a gun, and they overpower me, they take my gun and they use it for something else, not just to carry it for their own protection. So those potential eventualities scare me. I'm not against gun ownership. I'm not against the use of a gun for hunting or target practice, but I don't understand why there is a need to carry a gun in public in a business that is dealing with something that has absolutely nothing to do with guns, or the need for a gun. And up to this point, as long as I've been alive and as long as we've done business, and you know, ever since there was times where these laws did not exist, there's been no reason to carry a gun in public. No reason to bring it into whether it's a jewelry store or an art gallery or a theater or a bank. No reason to bring in a gun. We go about our daily business and nobody's afraid and nobody's intimidated. But somebody walks in with a gun and all of a sudden it puts you on the defensive, whether you want to be or not, or whether you think it's okay or not. You know, it isn't the Wild West, and there isn't a fear that there's anarchy or somebody's going to take something away from you or threaten you. We haven't had it up to this point. The fact that it exists, or that you can now, makes you think, well, what problems could happen? And I don't, my crystal ball isn't any more clairvoyant than yours, but I can't think anything good can come out of being able to carry a gun into public spaces.
Do you think you'll post a sign saying no weapons allowed in front of your business?
Well, if you think that that's going to stop somebody who actually has an intention of doing something bad or robbing my store, then yes. If you think that, you know, what's the point of putting a sign in that says don't bring a gun in here, well, it seems silly. I'll post a sign that says don't rob me too, or don't throw up in my doorstep, or don't throw a burrito on the second floor window, or don't spit on my windows if I thought it was going to stop people from doing what they were going to do. But it hasn't. In the 3.5 decades that I've been in this business, and 2.5 which I've owned the business, people still vomit in my door. They still spit on my windows. And I'm just talking about students that, you know, or anybody else, you know, after a football game, not necessarily students who happen to have too much to drink, who get kind of nutty. And if, you know, there have been times when, you know, robberies have been attempted or people have come in and threatened. And I don't think a sign is going to help that. So I probably won't put a sign in. What I might do is politely ask the person to leave, or take the gun off, put it down on a table, or bring it into the back room, put it into the safe, or whatever it is that they feel more comfortable doing. I don't want a loaded weapon inside of my space.
What effect do you think the new law will have, if any, in the downtown area?
Potentially it could be devastating. Whenever you get a large group of people in a small space, the potential for harm goes up dramatically. And whether it's a football game, whether it's a jazz festival, whether it's an arts festival, whether it's a farmer's market, there are a lot of people in downtown Iowa City in a small space. And to have somebody walking around when not only are there 30,000 students, but there may be 15,000 children under the age of 18 and just as many adults, Friday night concert series is a potential for disaster. You got the bars, and not that you're going to go out and shoot in the sky and have some big wingding, but there's more of a chance carrying a weapon that something disastrous is going to happen than if you didn't. So personally, I'd like to call this a gun-free zone. I don't get it. I can't figure it out. And again, I have to emphasize that I'm not anti-hunting. I'm not anti-gun ownership. A lot of friends of mine hunt, and they own guns, and they shoot targets, and they are responsible. But it only takes one Loeffner to potentially shoot 19 people. And, we're not saying that this is a gun that shoots one bullet at a time. It could be an assault rifle. It could be, shoots many rounds at a time. So there's no definition of what kind of gun you can carry. And so the potential for disaster exists in my mind. Why mess with that? Why invite it? Most people, maybe that's 8 out of 10, I don't know the statistic, maybe it's 9 out of 10, are going to be responsible. But that 1 out of 10, or that 1 out of 50, or that 1 out of 100 that decides that they want to do something, all I can think of is Gang Lou, that November day where he just went nuts, and, because of a dissertation. Not because he was a stupid person, but irresponsible with a weapon. And how many other people that are just, teetering on, well, what if? And I don't really care about me being killed, so they go on a rampage. And there are just too many people circulating around to say, yeah, I'm going to invite a gun into downtown Iowa City any more than it makes sense to invite a gun into Kinnick or invite a gun into the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. It doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I think most gun owners would understand that. Who's going to carry a gun unless you intend to use it? Why would you carry it downtown to go shopping? It's not like you're going to be, ambushed or, run into somebody who's going to take advantage of you. And if you're out, between midnight and 3 in the morning or midnight and 4 in the morning, I'm not quite sure what you're looking for. But nothing really goes well after midnight. Unless it's a New Year's Eve party and you're having a good time and you're out, but between midnight and 3 or 4 in the morning, it's a completely different set of circumstances. Why would a person need to carry a gun in the daylight hours going shopping for Valentine's Day? They want a better price? All they have to do is ask. I still may say no, but carrying a gun is going to be threatening to me and my staff and everybody else that I think that they might come in contact with and expose guns. So you go into a country like Israel, you go into a country like wherever, Russia, wherever they have exposed weapons, and it's odd because most Americans aren't used to seeing people on the streets with guns other than police. So I don't think it belongs. I don't like it.